I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and our first agenda item on the agenda is the resuscitation of the vision statement. And our vision statement is that every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. The next item on our agenda are public appearances. And we want to thank you all for coming to speak to us tonight. Speakers are welcome to speak on any topic at a regular board meeting, but we would like the speakers in the audience to know that board action and conversation is limited to items on our agenda, which means members of the board will not be able to engage in conversation with speakers. We will take your comments into account in our decision-making and follow up with you where appropriate. Speakers who require language interpretation support in order to speak to the board shall be given up to 6 minutes to speak, which shall generally provide sufficient time for the interpreter to convey the speaker's message. Individuals with disabilities who require accommodations in order to register and speak to the board shall be granted such accommodation upon request. Other extensions may be granted only by approval. So the time that each speaker has is up to 3 minutes. We do have the timer. Is that? Oh, we don't. Do we have our timer on our screen? Okay, we're going back to the old-fashioned way. I will ask people, you may not clearly hear the timer, and so if you don't mind, I will, once the timer has gone off, if people don't hear it, I will remind you that, that your time is up. Tonight we do have quite a few speakers. So I am going to ask that people be sure to limit your speech to 3 minutes. I am also going to ask that the audience does not make comments or applause in between. It's just hard to get through all of the speakers and show the amount of respect that we want to show. I'd also ask that the speaker who I give as next up come down, be on the side, and be ready to start as soon as the speaker before them is done. This will just help make sure that we're able to give everyone the time that they are owed. Our first speaker is David Blaska, followed by Jennifer Bastain. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Saturday morning, my neighbors in Orchard Ridge awoke to find a young man dead on their lawn. He'd been shot to death. Teenagers are stealing cars throughout the city. Home burglaries and heroin overdoses are becoming routine. School shootings across the nation demand more security, not less. Yet somehow, for the last 18 months, the Madison School Board has been considering expelling the educational resource officers, our city police, from our 4 public high schools. On July 25, the ad hoc committee considered prohibiting EROs from enforcing city ordinances. People, the City of Madison Police cannot be prohibited from enforcing City of Madison ordinances in a school located in the City of Madison. That's one way to say we don't want the EROs, because Chief Koval is never going to go for that. In any event, a city ordinance carries less penalty. There's no jail time associated with the civic ordinance. The Board of Education has heard from some very noisy people, and so many of them have been spraying the F-bomb as if it was holy water. They allege that the police officers in the school feed the school-to-prison pipeline. One of them even said the police are trained to kill black kids, even though all 4 Madison EROs are minority. I can assure you that no ERO shot that young man to death on Cameron Drive, stole those automobiles, broke into those garages, or overdosed on opioids. The social dysfunction of many Madison neighborhoods does not stop at the schoolhouse door. Madison schools may have problems, but police are not one of them. Instead, the EROs in our schools break up fights and prevent untold others. Police in our schools disarm students bearing loaded handguns. Police in our schools teach respect for the law. The ad hoc committee reports, and this is a quote, "Some of our students, just by the mere presence of the officers, feel unsafe," end quote. Members of the school board, I can tell you that so many of my neighbors of all races feel unsafe and want more police. After surviving the harassment and intimidation tactics of the cops out of school contingent at several of the ad hoc committee meetings, some of us don't feel safe at a school board meeting. One mother had her smartphone grabbed out of her hand and smashed to the floor. She's not here tonight. She told me she would never come back to another school board meeting without security. A lady named Barrett Stevens teaches at La Follette. She posted on the Orchard Ridge social media site today, quote, "I've been teaching at a Madison high school for 16 years. Because my 100 or more students heard that the ERO might be taken from our school, and we were talking about it during class, I took a poll. 94% of my students were not happy about getting rid of EROs. At least half of my students are black, if not more. Some said that our ERO was the only person he could talk with. Others said it was one of the few positive experiences they've had with a police officer. Others said it just made them feel safe." Now, what about the other 6%? I have to ask you, are our schools places of learning? Could they learn that police are there to help those who need help? So keep the EROs and extend them, please, to the middle schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer, followed by Bob Schaefer.
Hi, thank you for having us for public comment. I'd like to say it's my birthday, and I'm here today instead of celebrating with my friends and family because this is important. I am the director and arts manager of a new nonprofit arts and music venue in Madison that serves youth and all ages and is a sober space to provide a safer venue for youth to spend time. As such, I deal with youth frequently, and I'm also going to be a parent in the near future. The people that I speak with who are parents like me, who are anywhere from in their 20s to their 40s, they're more concerned about their children's safety than the comfort of adults. And they do not see cops in schools and EROs as the solution. I am asking to oppose having EROs continue. Please take these things into consideration, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bob Schaefer, followed by Jeff Meyer.
My name is Bob Schaefer, as you said. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. But I think that when we look at the situation of EROs, we have to first of all ask the question, why are they there? And the reason that they're there is obviously because of the problems that have developed, fights, bullying, guns, and other things like that. So when we look at a solution, yes, EROs, it would be better if they were not in the school, but what do we have to do to achieve that? We have to work on eliminating the fights. We have to work on eliminating bringing guns to school. We have to develop respect for each other, and we have to learn to work together. High school is actually an intermediate place between being a child and becoming an adult. They are actually young adults. And as young adults, that they need to learn how to interact well with other people. So I think that these are some of the things that we ought to strive for. As far as the committee is concerned, I think that the committee is doing a pretty good job, but I think the committee is missing a couple of elements of people that belong on that committee. I don't see any representation of the people who are probably most affected, and that's the students. That we have some student leadership in the schools, and they ought to have some say and be part of the discussion about what goes on within their schools. School administration, principals, or other places like that, I don't see any participation on their part, and they're the ones that are also affected. The other part of the team that's not presented or having a voice on the team are the MMSD security staff. They're the ones that have to deal with this, and they're the ones that need to be part of the committees. So I think that as you move forward, that you may want to consider expanding the committee in order to be able to get some of their input and in order to help work on solutions that would move us forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Meyer, followed by Camille Bernier.
Thank you. I have had 4 children attend Madison schools in the past. 2 were black, 2 were white. 2 were adopted, 1 was a foster child. 1 of the adopted children was special needs. The ERO at La Follette High School was an invaluable asset when my special needs daughter attended. She had many mental health and behavioral issues which resulted in frequent security and police contact both in and out of school. Officer Rossetti was the ERO at La Follette while she was there and was able to develop a relationship with our daughter, which helped immensely in diffusing some very difficult situations both on and off campus. There was an off-campus incident involving several police officers that occurred after school one day. Officer Rossetti was off the clock and heading home when he heard our daughter's name over the police radio. Even though he was done for the day, he immediately responded and worked with the officers already on the scene to help resolve what had become a very difficult situation. I believe the working relationship he was able to develop with our daughter at school helped with this and other off-campus situations. As a family, we were almost on a first-name basis with the patrol officers in our neighborhood, who were able to use Officer Rossetti as a resource in dealing with our special needs daughter. She is now 24, living in a supported environment run by Catholic Charities in Madison. She still has her challenges, but I believe her regular contact with an ERO, both when she was in crisis and when she was having a good day, helped her develop a working relationship with and a respect for police and other authority figures. I don't think the advantages of this type of relationship is limited to those with special needs, but can help any student, regardless of color, develop an understanding and respect for police and other authority figures. I believe the experiences of the EROs can also help police better understand the community and the individuals that they serve. I disagree with the current policy of mandating EROs be replaced on a regular basis. If an officer is willing to invest the time and energy to develop a long-term relationship with the school, its population, and especially at-risk individuals, I believe that should be encouraged. The familiarity that can develop can help build a stronger community. I also believe that recent events in the news, such as a student bringing a loaded gun to La Follette High School, indicate the need to have police in our schools to help keep both our children and staff safe. I think any opportunities children of any color have to be around police officers in everyday situations can only help in developing relationships and understanding of each other. If there are some who are uncomfortable, maybe having more opportunities for positive interaction with officers can help increase understanding on both sides and alleviate some of those uncomfortable feelings. Please keep the EROs in Madison schools.
Thank you. Camille, followed by Rachel Sauer.
Thank you. My family joins many disappointed families who are asking for 3 fifth-grade teachers at Crestwood Elementary School. The recent decision to move Ms. Thomas to 3rd grade has caused a lot of distress to many Crestwood families. We are dumbfounded that an award-winning teacher with 30 years of 5th grade dedication would be given 1 week's notice to move to 3rd when a 3rd grade teacher with 1 year of 5th grade experience was retained. Both the superintendent and the chief of school operations have cited, quote, best interest of students and, quote, declining numbers as the reason. I'll address the latter first. This advocacy for Ms. Thomas comes with a request to provide affected families with a process to objectively assess those declining numbers. At Crestwood, those numbers tell stories of more than just shifting demographics. I'm asking the board to study the declining numbers in families and teachers and provide us a process of meditation for very, very frustrated families. I feel that the school culture and climate at Crestwood is at an all-time low, and this recent decision is making it much worse. Parents feel hurt and heard, and families are leaving. Ms. Thomas remaining in 5th grade is what is, I believe, in the best interest of 5th graders for the following reasons. She teaches with a forceful intention, the likes of which I have rarely seen in my 10 years of volunteerism at the school. She has won awards for 5th grade science and has been nominated for several other awards. She helped to create Crestwood's 5th grade curriculum for social studies and science. She provides a community-based atmosphere known to adequately prepare 5th graders for middle school. My son has several friends that are adequately prepared by Ms. Thomas. She is versatile and has an outstanding rapport with students. She's an advocate for her students. She has her reputation precedes her as one of the most engaged 5th grade students in Crestwood. My student was one of her fifth graders and is completely devastated now. He knows he just lost his opportunity to learn from one of their most qualified teachers, and he's heartbroken. As an educator myself, I can't imagine how it must feel with 30 years of experience and retirement on my horizon to suddenly be given less than a week to prepare for a grade I've never taught while a colleague with years of third grade experience is retained. Were the affected teachers consulted? Several of us have heard that she was. She was offered to return to third grade. How is that in the best interest of the students? These are some of the many questions I have that are less than transparent at the moment. This move seems unfair, unjust, and certainly not in line with MMSD's stated core values, which include inverting the power pyramid, where, quote, if great teaching and leadership matter most, we must focus all of our efforts on the development of thriving school environments in which school staff can do their best work. Terry's done her best work for 30 years with fifth graders. The work of our system happens in schools, and central offices exist to serve schools. Central office must serve the needs of students, teachers, and principals, and schools must be accountable for the quality of that service. Please let Terry Thomas do her best work. I strongly advocate for her to return to Crestwood's fifth grade class, where her passion lies. Thank you.
Rachel, followed by Majid Allen.
My name is Rachel Sauer, and I'm the parent of a 5th and a 9th grader, Crestwood and Crestwood graduate. I honestly cannot believe I'm standing here today. You may recall that I was here last spring when my daughter and her peers came to ask you to help put Cindy Ball back where she belonged, teaching 8th grade social studies at Jefferson. I'm here now again in an all too familiar situation asking you to put Terry Thomas back in 5th grade where she belongs. Terry Thomas is an award-winning 5th grade teacher. She has been with the district for 30 years and has always taught 5th grade. Last week, at this time, on this day, we were told that our 5th grader had been assigned to Miss Thomas. He was ecstatic. We were thrilled. One of our daughter's best years at Crestwood had been 5th grade with Miss Thomas. We were grateful for how well she had prepared my daughter and her peers for middle school. The transition from 5th to 6th grade was as seamless as it can be with Miss Thomas's guidance. Imagine our surprise when 4 days later we were told that Miss Thomas instead was being moved to 3rd grade and that our child and many others in the Crestwood community had a new teacher placement because there were now 2 5th grade classes instead of 3. What happened to that allocation? Why was Miss Thomas moved when one of the other teachers has been in 5th grade for 1 year and prior to that was a 3rd grade teacher for many years? Were the teachers consulted? To these and many other questions, we have no answers from the principal. Why, when Ms. Thomas has created the 5th grade curriculum for science and social studies, would she be the one moved to a different grade? We are heartbroken. For our child, yes, but also for all of the students at Crestwood who deserve to have teachers who are teaching where their passion lies. We've been fortunate to have some great teachers at Crestwood, but we've also had teachers who were teaching outside of their passion area, and the results have never been very successful. Goal 2 of the strategic framework says the district and every school in it is a place where children, staff, and families thrive. I do not feel that this decision is helping any of our children, staff, or families to thrive. We open enrolled to Crestwood 9 years ago. The school was thriving. It was overcrowded, and we knew that if we didn't move into the attendance area, our son might not even be able to attend Crestwood with his sister. We sold our house and moved into the attendance area so that he would be able to attend this school that we loved. Last night before bed, he was looking to put on a t-shirt. He pulled out this Crestwood t-shirt and said, "I'm never wearing this again." Is this how you want a 5th grader to begin his final elementary school year? I can assure you it is not. I'm heartbroken for my child, his peers, the 3rd graders at Crestwood who are set to have a teacher who's been given days to prepare for a grade she has never taught when they could instead have a teacher who has a passion for their grade level. I ask you to consider following up with the administration at Crestwood. Please get the answers that I have been unable to get. Please speak up for what is right for our students, their families, our teachers, and our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Majid, followed by Dave Glomp.
Hi, I'm also a parent of a 5th grader at Crestwood, and I think Camille and Rachel have adequately covered most of the points that need to be made in this case. So instead, I'm going to speak about Terry Thomas. And excuse me, I got a sinus infection I'm battling. I first met Miss Thomas about 8, 9 years ago as a volunteer in her classroom. I volunteered in a number of classrooms over a period of several months, and I recognized her immediately as one of those teachers that students are going to remember when they're my age. And those were few and far between. For those of you who are my age or older, you might remember a handful of your teachers. She's one of those teachers. She is uniquely qualified to teach at the 5th grade level. I've coached baseball for 8 years now. So I see a lot of the kids at that age level and all up through 16 years old. As a result of my involvement with youth sports, I came to mentor a number of children, including one of her former students. Someone you may consider at risk based on his demographic profile. I can tell you, when I brought up the connection between this student and Miss Thomas, this child's eyes lit up. He's now a senior at James Madison, and recently reunited with Miss Thomas as he's struggling to maintain his grades and attendance. She has, after all these years, said, absolutely, I'm there for you. She's the kind of teacher that goes above and beyond a call of duty to help her students, engage them creatively, and to ask her now, as the other speakers have mentioned, to move down to a different grade that she's never taught at before. What does that do to you as an educator? Here's someone whose passion lies, as the other speakers have mentioned, with this age group that is transitioning to adolescence and middle school, including students, that people are here in the audience tonight, concerned about their welfare. How are they going to succeed in this, environment as they get older and go through the school system? She is the type of teacher that you want at this age level. And for an administrator or principal not to recognize that, I don't care about my kid's going to be fine. We will make sure of that. This woman, this teacher, cares for all of her students. She demands excellence from all of them. So again, I'm not going to beat the dead horse, but suffice it to say that we were extremely disappointed to hear that this change was being made, not only for our child, but for all the children that are now going to be robbed of her wisdom, the insight developed over 30 years. You would think someone gets, bored and worn out in their position. That is not this teacher. She is an amazing teacher. She deserves to be retained at the grade level where she thrives. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Dave, followed by Amy DeGraff Castro.
Good evening. My name is Dave Glomp. I'm a 48-year resident of the west side of Madison. In the interest of full disclosure, I had 2 sons who attended Madison Public Schools from kindergarten on through high school and graduated. And I say that because I have always been impressed with the Madison Public Schools, and I hope I can continue on that vein. I'm here to share with you my thoughts regarding supporting the retention of the 4 educational resource officers in the 4 public high schools. These officers have become an integral part of public safety, maintaining order and civility in our high schools. They have also provided friendship and counsel to both students, faculty, and staff where they have served. To remove them would be a true disservice to public safety, order, and civility in our high schools. If we have learned anything from the many school shootings and other school-related attacks across this country, it's that response time is extremely critical when something happens in our schools. If we remove these resource officers and replace them with others who might be on call, this response time will only increase. Therefore, at this time, I encourage board members to retain the 4 EROs in the 4 public high schools. In addition, I would encourage an ongoing, continued review of the ways to improve officers' presence and actions designed to maintain public safety and to improve rapport with the school's diverse student population, the staff, and also to maintain order civility, and most importantly, public safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Amy, followed by Susan Goddard.
My name is Amy, and before I begin, I would like to say that I appreciate people's views and stories that they've felt comfortable with EROs, because it's always so much easier to sympathize with yourself. But in regards to the EROs, I would also like to point out that half the arrests they've made have been Black disabled students. So before thinking about yourself, I think we should think about others. My name is Amy, as I stated, and last month I was witness to this school board committing to Black excellence while silencing Black students at the exact same meeting. I watched you all pat yourselves on the back as you allowed white supremacists to derail your committee meetings and harass the very students you claimed to be empowering. Freedom, Inc. has taken the time to show facts, figures, emotional narratives, and every single possible reason to not have EROs in our schools. I don't know what more they and everyone else in support of Freedom, Inc. can do to convince you and your committee that Black and brown youth deserve the ability to go to schools without fear of harassment. I deeply sympathize with this issue because one of my ethnic groups, Indigenous Peoples of America, are 60% more likely to be killed by police officers than whites. I will always support our future, the youth. The youth have targets on their backs. What will you do to help remove them? As artist Frank Walton says, I give my heart for the people, the revolution's begun. We're standing stronger than ever when history weighs a ton. I'm giving thanks to Creator and suffering with the sun. My allegiance is with the land my people agreed to care for. Our knowledge is in the land. The answers live in our youth. I petition my position to live in conditions that kill my people. The demands are take cops out of schools, invest money in youth of color, not police, such as culturally competent social workers, give parents, youth, and community control over school discipline. Thank you.
Susan, followed by Zaua Paye.
Hi. Last week was off to a great start for me. I was on a road trip with my kids, visiting family in far-off states, a sort of last hurrah before school starts for all of us. I returned home to a very wet basement and some very distressing news from Crestwood Elementary, where my daughter is entering 5th grade. Friday morning, I got a call from the principal that numbers are down, so instead of 3 5th grade classes, Crestwood is down to 2, and that the teacher whose class my daughter would be placed in, Terry Thomas, would be teaching 3rd grade instead. Now I have like 2 paragraphs here outlining accolades for Terry Thomas and how amazing she is, but you've heard that several times, so I'll spare you that. But I do want to say that to jerk her out of a position she loves so dearly and excels at is a devastating mistake for our school. If this were a one-time event, or if this were a specific issue with my child, I would not be taking your precious time at a board meeting to talk about it. I would instead take this up with the principal and try to problem solve with her. But by the time I had left for this meeting, I had not heard from the principal any justification for why this change was made. I am here speaking publicly because I believe this is a systemic issue. This follows a pattern at Crestwood and other schools in the district of treating teachers like they are expendable, interchangeable parts in a machine, rather than fully human professionals who have spent years honing their expertise. We've heard similar stories out of Jefferson with Ms. Ball, Blackhawk with the algebra teacher who spoke a few months ago, Sherman Middle School, and I would be really surprised if there were not others that could be added to this list. When stuff like this happens, it's not just an inconvenience. It's actually very disruptive for students, families, and staff. We had a pretty rough start at Crestwood last year, too. Our school has seen an exodus of staff and decreasing enrollment in the past 2 years. This worries me, and it should worry you. I didn't want to come here and speak tonight. I have a basement to clean. I don't like feeling like an adversary here, but tonight I cannot stand by and say nothing. I believe in my heart that the best interest of students should be at the center of every decision that is made in our schools. When I see an environment that is increasingly demoralizing and hostile, that's not what's best for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoua, followed by John Vang.
My name is Mike Tao. I'm a youth organizer at Freedom Inc. My team and I have been going to these ERO's ad hoc meetings for a year now to demand for no cops in schools, but yet our voices are still not heard. As young people, we know our school is best, so I don't understand why you all who have not been in high school students for many decades now are listening to students and instead want to read through this researched recommendation and then decide on what is best for students. If my voice isn't heard here, how are you going to expect for my voice to be heard by the police? How are you expecting for the police to follow your rules when they aren't under your control? Chief Calvo has already made it clear that he doesn't care about any accountabilities process outside of him. Since you all love research and data so much, why don't we talk about MMSD's referrals to law enforcement and arrests in 2015? Why is that black girls were 13 times more likely to be arrested at MMSD schools than all other girls in 2015? Why is that black girls were 7 times more likely to be referred by MMSD to law enforcement than all other girls in 2015? Why is that black high school students with disabilities were 76 times more likely to be arrested at MMSD schools? Why is that black middle school students with disabilities were 27 times more likely to be arrested? Why is that black elementary school students with disability were 6 times more likely to be arrested? And lastly, why is that black elementary students were nearly 3 times more likely to be arrested at MMSD schools than white students in all grades in 2015? Why is this? It's because you all are racist. You all allow the police to be in schools. The police are racist. The foundation that the police institution was built on was and continues to be racial profiling of black and brown people. Police aren't there to protect us. Get them out. Invest money into youth of color and not the police. Let students, parents, and community members have control over school safety. Just know that even though you all don't kick out the cops today, we will still continue to fight to get them out. And even though you are the decision makers today, doesn't mean that you all can be the decision makers tomorrow. I just turned 18 years old this year. I am finally a registered voter. I have been studying all of you, and everything I learn, I make sure to teach back to my community.
Thank you. John Vang, followed by Selena Yang. John Vang, followed by Selena Yang.
My name is John Vang, and I'm a youth organizer at Freedom Inc. And I got one question for everyone on that table. Do you think that EROs are educational resources? From my perspective, they are not educational resource officers. Listen to a story of mine. This was just a few years ago when I was attending Memorial High School. So me and my black friend got to school late. As we were walking towards the A wing at Memorial High School, the police officer came up to us and started asking us why were we skipping class. I told the police that we just got back from the mall and was on our way to get a late passage to our next class. The police officer let me go, and as I walked away, he stopped my friend. I turned back to listen what they were talking about. It sounded like something bad was gonna happen. I didn't know what I could do to support my friend at that moment. I felt powerless, so I continued towards the police. As soon as I walked into the office, I got my pass and was gonna go get my friend. But as I got out of the office, my friend was nowhere to be seen. From that day onward, it was clear to me that the police were only there to harass students of color, especially black students. It's messed up how you all invested money in the cops who arrest black and brown students because that was supposedly make schools safer. It's messed up how you all invested money in cops to beat up black and brown students because that was supposedly make schools safer. And it's also messed up how you all invest money in schools to shoot and kill black and brown students because that was supposedly make schools safer. You may be thinking to yourself, well, that's not true. That will never happen here. This city said the same thing when the nation was talking about the killing of black people. This city said that there will never be a Mike Brown here. Well, look what happened. Tony Robinson was murdered by Officer Matt Kenney. It may not happen here now, but it is likely that it will happen in the future. If you all continue to put money into cops, remember that you all are not only bringing cops into schools. Y'all are bringing more trouble and more violence to students of color. You all are taking black and brown children away from their education. You all are taking black and brown children away from the ones they love. You are stripping away the possibility of a bright future from black and brown children. Instead of that, y'all can invest the money towards students of color. If y'all do that, y'all will not only help them, but y'all will allow them to reach their dreams and goals. So, let's end the contract with the cops, invest at $360,000 into students of color, and last students and parents and community members have control over school safety.
Thank you. Selena Yang, followed by Savang Chahorn.
Okay. My name is Selena Yang. I'm a youth organizer at Freedom Inc. As a young person of color, we already have targets on us. The moment we step out of the door, our home, the world is already labeling us stupid, troublemakers, gangbangers, and prostitutes. Youth of color are never allowed to make mistakes. When youth of color, especially black youth, make mistakes, the consequence is usually prison and death. School is supposed to be a safe space for youth to explore themselves, to learn, to love, to make mistakes and grow. But how is that possible when our school district is spending money on the police and not on students? Schools are not supposed to be a gateway to prisons, but you have turned them into that. Having cops in our schools further criminalizes students of color. You all are preparing us for prison. In 2015, students of color were 92% of arrested students. Black students were 76% of arrested students, but only makes up 18% of the school population. You all spend a lot of time saying that you care about the future of young people and that you want the best for us, but you continue to have police in our schools. As a Madison High School student, I do not want cops in schools. School should be the one space that I feel comfortable being a young Hmong girl. Take cops out of school. I want you all to use that money to invest in youth of color and not the police. I want students, parents, and community members to have control over school safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Savang, followed by Peyton Yang.
Hello, my name is Savang Chom, and I work for Freedom Inc. as a Khmer Gender Justice Coordinators. I am here again today to let you know how shameful it is that Mr. Belaski, for encouraging our tax dollars to be used to create jail systems in our schools. Cop patrolling our schools and questioning students cannot be what we want for our kids. Parents can teach their own kids to respect the law. Cops are not trained to work with students, and we should listen to the students that has testified at every hearing when they say cops don't make schools safe. They want better teachers, more extracurricular activities, better social workers, and support staff. That's what makes schools safer. I do not know of any other students as civically engaged as those from Freedom Inc. Youth. We should encourage and hope that our children speak up for themselves and attending government hearings to use their voices. Some of our youth will be voting this November. They are our future. You are here to listen and to make the right decision for our students. Each of you gets to go home and spend time with your families while we at times have to look over our shoulders just to make sure we're safe walking down the street or on the school hallways. I hope that you can sleep well at night knowing this. I want to read a vision from Dignity in School because it's aligned with our demands. We envision a public school system that values students, parents, and communities as decision makers with fundamental human right to shape their educations. In this educational system, schools are safe, healthy, nurturing environment where every student has the opportunity to reach their full potentials. Schools would work towards preventing traumas, repairing harms, and promoting healings, and reject the culture of punishment and criminalizations. Schools provide equitable resources, adopt culturally relevant curriculums, and address racism and all forms of oppressions. In this educational system, education is a human right. Our school values the humanities and dignity of all people that is essential for students to succeed. As we built a movement to success and realize this vision, we see our work as connected to Borders movement for school justice and human rights in the United States and global. We here demand no cops in school. Secondly, make sure the money is invested into youth of colors, not police. Let parents, youth, and communities have control over school safety. I am here today to ask that of my youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Peyton, followed by Zon Maua.
Hello. My name is Peyton Yang, and I am a youth organizer. I want you all to open your ears, open your hearts, and open your mind today, because I have something really important to teach you all. We are a nation built on the genocide of Native people and the kidnapping and enslavement of African people. So much blood, sweat, and tears have been shed and continue to be shed to this day. We must never forget that history. The establishment of the police was never to protect people. It was always to protect property. And throughout history, black and brown bodies, women and children have always been seen as property to the white man. So even if some cops are folks of color, they are not minorities to the system as they serve the white folks like you, David Blaska. Like how your white ancestors made other black folks catch other black slaves. An institution created such principles is now in our schools. This is very concerning to me. The police never protected us in our homes. The police never protected us in the community. The police were never protected us on the streets. The police never protected us in the past. When Tony Robinson needed mental health wellness support, he was instead given 7 bullets to his body by Officer Matt Kenny. When Sierra Finkley feared for her life and her child's life because of domestic violence, she called the police not once, not twice, but 3 times for safety planning and crisis intervention. She was instead given incarceration and the threat of child custody removal. When Janelle Lear confronted the person who had stolen her phone, the police did not support the investigation. Instead, the police slammed her face to the ground, kicked, punched, and tased her several times, and then put a bag over her head. The police continues to show us that they are not here to protect us, and yet they are in schools, in our schools. As elected school board members, you hold the power in making the decisions, policies, and procedures that will impact children every day in shaping how their future will look like. Cops do not protect our children. We've seen the statistics of arrests and referrals of black students to law enforcement. You all know this information already. Isn't there a saying that goes like this? Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, you do better. You all know better, but are not doing better. You continue to put police officers in schools and allow the criminalization of young people. Instead of investing in young people, you are investing in prison cultivation. Earlier, I said to you that you hold the power to making the decisions. But I forgot that I also hold the power to vote.
Please finish up.
I can speak if I want to. Now that I am registered voter, I pledge to vote on issues that will bring economic and political power to black and brown communities. Because it's about healing and growing our children, not harming them. So I continue to demand these 3 things to happen. For no cops in schools. 1, terminate the contract. And 2, invest money into youth of color and not the police. And 3, let students, parents, like you, community members, to have control over their school safety. Thank you.
Zahn, followed by Soraya Mulhern Allred. I think we all appreciate respect for each other and for the time, and I think that's how we do our best listening. So I would appreciate that people would follow the guidelines that we have set. Thank you.
My name is Zhang Mo, and I am all for reclaiming time for black and brown people. So today, I am actually not speaking from my own experiences. Today, I'm speaking from one of our young youth organizers who's high school, she's going into junior high this year. Unfortunately, she was not able to be here. You ask why? Because our school district is investing money into cops and not into the development of her. So because of that, she was not able to attend because she had to attend to things. So I will be reading her speech that she would have wanted to share with you all. My name is Cynthia. I'm a youth organizer at Freedom Inc. First off, I want to give Dean and TJ credit for adding a few progressive things into the recommendations. In case you didn't see that, progressive was in quotations. I've been attending these public school meetings for over a year, and y'all still don't even listen to me. I'm a student. I attend a Madison school, and I've been telling y'all for over a year now that I do not want cops in schools. You want to hear from students? Well, here it goes. I wake up at 6:30 a.m. and spend 8 hours in school learning about white people's violent, shitty history. I get discriminated because of my skin color and the fact that I can speak another language. I get stopped by the police because of my clothing. It's considered suspicious because, you know, I'm a girl and I'm not wearing skin-tight clothing and I'm bending all the gender norms. The police and security guards all target students of color. Students of color are the ones getting harassed by the police every day. Stop putting on an act saying how y'all want to protect us when what you truly care about is protecting property and white people. Y'all don't give a damn about students of color. Getting ready to go to school, I am always reminded of the harsh reality that the police don't do shit to protect me, and that I have to be the one protecting myself. As students of color, we feel like the school is a battlefield. We don't feel safe because the cops are there patrolling our hallways and surveillancing us. The cops do not belong in our schools. We students of color know what safety looks like for us, and it definitely does not involve having cops in our schools. We want you all to take police out of schools, put money into the positive youth development for youth of color, and let students, parents, and community members have control over school safety. It's been well over 12 months now, and I still have to say the same thing over and over again. It seems like the school board does not value my experiences and future as a young person. It seems like my words mean nothing to you all. If you don't trust us students, then we students of color will no longer trust the school board. We will continue to push for greatness, and you only have two options: to either invest in youth of color or step down from your position as a school board member. I may not be able to vote yet, but I have many friends, family, and community members who can vote and are interested in voting in the favor of my future.
Thank you. Soraya, followed by Paul Skidmore.
Hi, my name is Sierra, and I was in Memorial High School for 2 years. I'm now a senior. The following is my proposal for a peer support system. The average size of a school in MMSD is about 2,000 students. This leaves every school psychologist with 400 to 500 kids on their caseload. This caseload makes it difficult for students to properly have their needs addressed. The proposed solution of a peer support system is a program where people who have experienced mental health problems can find support through trained peer facilities. Peer facilitators have a unique perspective as they have experienced similar issues. This system is needed because from experience, I have noticed students who are constantly struggling in their day-to-day life, enough that they are sometimes scared to go to school. Peer support is shown to be successful because more people are comfortable with peers than they are professionals. Mental Health America believes that peer support is a unique and essential element of recovery-oriented mental health and substance abuse systems. Peer support is considered a best practice by Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Peer support services have further been shown to reduce symptoms and hospitalizations, increase social support and participation in the community, decrease length of hospital stays, improve well-being and social functioning, encourage more thorough and long-lasting recoveries. Hence why peer support is the best option for additional mental health support. The participating students would be chosen in June and would go through mental health training in the summer. But that's not all. All students interested in participating would have to have one student from each of their classes that they are not friends with give a positive recommendation about them. The students would then go through a mental health first aid course, as well as a Discovery Corps program, which teaches advocacy leadership, peer coaching, and community education. Once trained, youth will meet with the school faculty for ongoing support and guidance. The students would each have a desk in the resource room next to the other tutors, where we usually do standardized testing. If a student is talking about suicide, self-harm, or anything related, the student support would take over the student currently with their designated psychologist, and they would talk to the professional. This way, students in crisis get automatic support. They would all have a different class period so that we aren't overbooked in one class period and so that everyone gets equal care. And as a final, they would be required to write an essay on what they've learned. In all, peer support is an excellent way to expand mental health support in schools. With extensive research from Mental Health America and others, it is shown to be successful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Paul Skidmore, followed by Nico Magallan.
Good evening. My name is Paul Skidmore, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak here. I am an alder, city council member for the 9th District, City of Madison. I'm here in my official capacity speaking, representing my 12,000 constituents on the west side of Madison. Many have children in the Madison Metropolitan School District, and many have contacted me to express their opinion. The vast majority that I've heard from, in fact, I haven't heard any negative comments. The vast majority support the Madison Metropolitan School District, and they strongly support EROs remaining in the schools. And I've also heard from a number of people that have contacted me to tell me that they've moved to the far west side of the district. They've also some have expressed interest in moving to the district because the far west part of the district is in the Middleton Cross Plains School District, and they look at that as being desirable. So I am aware of the flight from MMSD to other schools, and I'm also aware that that school district will be constructing a middle school and an elementary school just off of Old Sauk Road in the near future. I'm also very familiar with all levels of the Madison Metropolitan School District. As part of being an alder, I try to get familiar with what's happening, so I've been on a number of ride-alongs with EROs or walk-alongs, depending on how you want to call it, in Madison schools. I've been principal for a day in each level, and I've gotten an opportunity to talk to many educators and students within the school district. So I've been, in my 18 years on the council, I've spent a fair amount of time. And the school district, just like the city, has changed. The situations have been changing, the challenges have been changing, and I got to say that our schools are really a reflection of our society, and that our society has changed a lot. The behavior in Madison and the country has changed, and there are a lot of problems that we have to deal with. Schools are no different. It's not at all like when I was in high school, or probably some of you were in high school, and we're changing, and it's a hard time, and I'm sensitive to all that I'm hearing tonight. But it comes down to behavior. There is some very, very bad behavior on the streets of the city of Madison, and there is some very bad behavior.
Excuse me, please let the man speak.
There's some very bad behavior in the schools, and nothing that can be said is going to change the fact that there's very bad behavior and that it needs to be dealt with. The EROs are more than just beat officers, and they provide a link to and a bridge to students and staff. That's where they're unique, and that's why they're there. And if they leave, if they're not allowed to be there, that's not going to change the bad behavior. It's just going to change who responds to the bad behavior. There have been some very significant...
Please finish up.
Okay, there have been some very significant incidents, and they will be continuing to respond, but there'll be beat officers who are there to end the threat, and you will lose that link. I urge you not to...
Please finish up. Thank you.
I urge you not to get rid of the EROs. Thank you.
Thank you. Nico, followed by Julia Levine.
All right, so I noticed you all didn't give the vision recitation, so I will give it today. First of all, my name is Nico Magallon. So every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. Okay, we got that done. All right, so much of what I'm saying and have said has been inspired by working alongside Freedom Inc. and Freedom Inc. Youth Squad. The youth that I've worked with, aside from being some of the coolest people that I've met in the city, each with their own array of creative talents and leadership qualities, are shining examples of young people in MMSD who have developed a critical analysis of their experience in MMSD school spaces. These are young people who have disoriented themselves from the cookie-cutter student experience of settling for obeying peer pressure or pressure from grown-ups to simply obey and be standardized, tested out of the educational system and into the carceral state. Instead, over the last year and a half, the youth who have been organizing both youth and grown-ups alike to civically engage in these decision-making spaces that determine their student experience and outcomes have instead committed to training and development, historical research, right, understanding their history and their roots, celebrating cultures such as Black, Southeast Asian, queer and trans liberation, indigenous teachings, hip-hop elements, etc., personal leadership and group leadership in accomplishing teamwork, co-creating literary works to share their stories, their truths, what is wanted, what is needed. And it's as if all of this weren't enough alone to help grow their skills and their leadership potential, which is what the schools ought to be doing. With the youth, Black and brown youth have also developed an intergenerational partnership with grown-ups, a youth and family hammer that is fully engaged in social justice policy organizing for gender justice, queer justice, as well as Black and Southeast Asian liberation. The culmination of youth and trusted, culturally validating grown-ups all working together to develop intellectual empowerment and a strategic vision has led to the demands that folks have been saying in these spaces for the last year and a half. No cops in schools. And more broadly, youth and community members are holding you all as decision makers accountable to the radical redistribution of wealth and power in the schools. And with Trump and Betsy DeVos in office and Scott Walker poised to win a third term as governor against the public school superintendent after previously defeating the current MMSD school board president, what else could possibly be more important than radically shifting our economic and social systems and radically transforming the institutions like MMSD that form the vital choice point between either the perpetuation or the healing of Madison's notorious racial disparities? The equitable and restorative path to school climate isn't turning school spaces further and further into securitized, sterile, and anti-black and brown spaces, renewing police contracts, setting up more security cameras, which you all are prepared to spend another $367,000 on, or even arming teachers with guns. We've heard that idea before. I'm finishing up. The equitable and restorative path to a loving, positive, and anti-racist environment that centers the needs of black and brown youth who make up and will continue to make up a majority of learners in MMSD is to invest money and time into growing the skills and leadership of students to be supported, not tokenized, in organizing multiculturally, both intraculturally and cross-culturally to implement the solutions that they want and that they need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julia Levine, followed by Dwayne Steinhauer.
Hi, my name is Julia, and I'm a graduate of the MMSD school system through Franklin, Randall, Hamilton, then West. At each of these stages in my schooling, I remained separate from students of color. We took different classes, we ate in different parts of the cafeteria, we did different things after school, and we had different relationships with security. Of course, I didn't notice the cops in my school. The national conversation about police brutality had just begun, so it wasn't really part of the cultural dialogue, and also I believe my whiteness blinded me to it. If you had given me a survey about cops in schools when I went to West, I would have had no opinion about them. I couldn't see their effects, and I believe this is part of my white privilege. As a young white woman from wealth, I'm not constructed to be a threat or reprimanded by cops. They didn't trigger me emotionally because I haven't seen a family member get arrested. I haven't seen people look like me experience brutality in viral clips that get replayed on nightly news. And maybe if one of my peers had come up to me and said, "These cops make me uncomfortable," I wouldn't have believed them because it was so far from my reality. And so what I'm asking here tonight, as someone who had the privilege to walk through high school without interaction with cops, is just standing here to support and echo the demands of Freedom, Inc. All kids should have the opportunity to have mentors that are not cops. All of my mentors have not had the intense social power of cops over me, in which they could at any moment strip me of my freedom. And I think every student really deserves this. No cops in schools, yes, mentors and culturally responsive counselors that are not there to provide order and civility, in the words of someone here, but rather to provide space for the messy negotiation of young adulthood in a broken racist system that should be attempting radical healing, not promoting tired racial social dynamics that put kids at risk. If you're interested in listening to diverse voices in order to craft a just school district, look at who showed up tonight in support of EROs, all older white folks, mostly men, and those that showed up against youth of color, social workers, teachers, students, visionaries, protectors, mentors, etc., all working hard as hell to heal this community. Listen to them here and now. This uncomfortable feeling in the air, this is change.
Dwayne, followed by CV Vitolo Haddad. Okay, CV, followed by Evelyn Gildry Voiles.
Oh dear. Hello, my name is CV Vitolo Haddad. I direct the debate program at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I'm here today to ask you to oppose renewing the contract that would keep cops in our schools. I'm disturbed to hear from the few people today who would rather stir up fear than sit down and review the data on this matter. Fear is a powerful motivator, and it's one that gives us an easy emotional release from the cognitive pressure of making difficult decisions, especially when it seems like there's no right answer. Life is precarious, and especially these days, evil abounds us. But we must not answer fear with more fear. We must not compound tragedy with tragedy by displacing the natural precarity of life onto our black and brown students, such that a small minority of the audience might feel safer. But this plea is empty without data to support it, so let's review the data. We can start close to home for me, just miles away from my parents live. Scott Peterson, who spent most of his life in law enforcement as a school resource officer, remained outside Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, while a teenager armed with an AR-15 killed 14 students and 3 teachers. But anecdotes are not data, not when it's used to fearmonger, and not when it supports the points that I like either. A 2009 study by Michael Throat at the University of Tennessee compared student arrests and court records across schools. Controlling for socioeconomic status, the researcher found that there wasn't a difference in serious crimes between those who had school resource officers and those that didn't. Students policed at schools were much more likely to get arrested than unpoliced schools, but they weren't any more likely to be actually charged. In other words, students are policed at schools, but they weren't likely to be, they were arrested, but they weren't charged because there was rarely evidence to convict them or charge them with a crime. This is exactly the problem that's led some juvenile judges to speak out against police in our schools. The chief judge in juvenile court in Clayton County, Georgia, for example, told Congress at a 2012 hearing that school resource officers meant that prosecutors' attention was taken away from more difficult evidentiary and scary cases like burglary, car thefts, and aggravated assaults to prosecuting kids that weren't scary but had made an adult mad somewhere along the line. Bolstering their arrest rates was apparently more important than the nature of the crime or the damage the prosecution would do to the educational environment. And there's more. The National Center for Education Statistics says that victimization, which is theft and violent crime, has dropped 72% over the last 20 years, and that those trends hold consistent even absent educational resource officers, absent police dogs, and absent metal detectors. And armed resource officers aren't cheap, and in this era of declining resources in public education, school resource officers and any armed professionals come at the expense of other investments: smaller class sizes, more teachers with better pays and rewards to develop their craft, more paraprofessionals to assist teachers, and expanded tutoring services for students who fall behind. I understand the fear, and I know these are scary times, and I promise I'll wrap up in the next 5 seconds. But we can't seek to beat evil into submission by incorrectly locating it in the bodies of black and brown children. Please support Freedom Youth, and please establish a dialogue with the community members who push for us to get cops in schools and who have other options for how we can decrease violence. Thank you.
Evelyn, followed by Patrick O'Laughlin.
Hi, my name is Evelyn Gildry-Voiles. I live in the near west side of Madison, 53705. My son is going to go into West High School. I vehemently oppose EROs in schools. I just want to point out that when I saw the video cameras come up and when I saw people starting to video, it was not until there was a young person of color up here. There was a white woman, a little bit younger than me, who also was speaking against EROs. There were no cameras on her. I did not see them until it was a young person of color. I saw that twice. The third time, it was in direct response to the speaker who had spoken to another speaker. I think it's very clear. They're here to intimidate. That is why the videos are here. And I just wanted to point it out because I noticed it and it bothered me. While I really oppose EROs in schools, I want to highlight a recommendation that I read in the little recommendations from the ERO ad hoc committee, which was police officers, whether they are EROs or liaison officers, should not be used for school disciplinarians. They should not be used to enforce school rules rather than city rules. I think that's incredibly important, and we have to have a system in place that lets that happen. Because right now, Cherokee Middle School, where my 8th grader, now 9th grader went, when the police are called, they are called into the schools to enforce cell phone policy. I got an email at the end of school letting me know of an incident where a girl was asked to put away her cell phone. She became upset and was removed from the classroom. Then a police officer was called. She was further upset. Then her mother arrived and she calmed down. Then the police officer escorted the parent and the child off the premises. The tone of this email was to assure me that no children were hurt, that everyone was okay, that there was no violence. Nothing was said about what happened to the girl or her mother. Nothing was said about why the police officer arrived before the parent. Nothing was said about why police officers were called over a cell phone in the first place. It is very clear the reason we were told is so that we as parents didn't feel bad that our children were not safe in school, and we were let to know that police officers would solve the big bad cell phone anger issue. We are doing safety theater when we have EROs. We are doing safety theater when we send these kind of emails, and that's not real safety. That's assuring me, nice white mom, that my nice white kids are okay by putting away the scary black children. And that's not okay.
Thank you. Patrick O'Loughlin, followed by John Cook.
Yes, I have to say I think it's ironic that there's been so much said today about the using statistics. Because last time I was here, I was told no uncertain terms about what I could do with statistics. But I did want to point out that on the money, which has become a big deal here about the money that is spent on the cops and that it's not spent on the kids. Being the school board members, I'm sure you know that the school board budget is $331 million. The $360,000 that you're talking about here is less than 0.1%. Okay, so it's, you know, but it also, again, the other thing is in the statistics about the arrests, the high arrest rates. Let me just say that the logic of that is along the lines of the notion that wet streets cause rain. So that's all I've got to say. I do support the EROs in the schools.
Thank you. John Cook, followed by Bruce Michael Hennington.
Some of the figures I'm about to use have already been stated by some of these amazing students, but they bear repeating, so I'm going to say them anyway. People have been throwing around the word racist a lot, and that probably makes you guys feel really uncomfortable. I get that, I'm white too, but I'm going to break that down a little bit for you here. I'll actually cover that, let me get into that. Most of you probably know that Madison is one of the worst places in America to be black. Many of you may also know that half our jail population is black, or that 75% of our city's black children live in poverty, while only 5% of our white children do, or that 84% of students arrested in Madison schools are black. And all of you have heard the personal testimony of parents and students of color in this room. In fact, there's an overwhelming volume of evidence of the miserable state of affairs black and brown people in our city live under while their white counterparts thrive. And when you examine this evidence, it becomes clear that this state of affairs is at best tacitly permitted and at worst actively enforced by the city's institutions. That includes, but is not limited to, the police. This is why it's no stretch to call Madison an institutionally white supremacist city. It's because white supremacy in Madison doesn't look like a bunch of screaming men with tiki torches. It looks like a room full of quote-unquote reasonable people demanding that the oppressed quiet down, wait their turn, and be orderly and respectable every time they demand to not live lives hounded by police. It looks like these reasonable people ignoring the testimony and demands of the oppressed because they either refuse to believe them, refuse to imagine that a better, safer school system is possible without armed officers, or simply don't care enough to risk any change to this status quo. Our city did not get this way by accident. There wasn't a random lottery that was rolled and we turned out to be the worst city in America for black people and one of the best for white people. It got here through a series of deliberate decisions by people in positions like yours who chose to take the path of least resistance, even when that path runs directly over the bodies of our most vulnerable communities. This time, you must take a new path, one which will benefit all of our students, not just the white ones. You must, in the ERO program, use that money in a way that benefits all students, including students of color, and allows the students and parents control of their own safety. There is no other conscionable option. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Bruce Michael Hennington. I am retired. In my previous life, I was a Catholic priest in the parishes I served in 6 different congregations, 4 of which had schools. As part of that, I earned certification from the Wisconsin DPI as a school safety and security coordinator. I still hold that certification. One of the first and the most repeated lesson we learned in the 10-year-long course of instruction and exercises for that certification was this mantra: never, never say, "It can't happen here." I was living in Florida on February 14th, 2018, when the horrendous shootings took place at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland. I can assure you that the after-event criticism in the Florida media was not that there was an armed law enforcement school resource officer on that campus. It was about that officer's manner of response and that there weren't enough of them on that campus. God forbid that any such tragedy should ever happen in a Madison school. But remember, never, never say, "It can't happen here." But should it happen, and you have terminated the presence of an armed law enforcement ERO or SRO in that school, and therefore that officer's ability to assist in preventive pre-planning, in real-time mitigation and response, and in after-event legal detection and arrest of any perpetrators. Will those who proposed such termination come forward to congratulate you for fulfilling your responsibility, or will they be the first to rise up and criticize you for dereliction of duty? Will those who proposed and you who enacted the termination expect a "thanks for a job well done" from the public, or from the victims' families, or from those who survived in spite of your termination policy?
Please finish up.
I thank you for your time and your attention, and if you wish, I will leave a copy of my remarks for the Secretary.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so that finishes up our public appearances for this evening. The next item on the agenda is Board President's announcements and reports. The first announcement is that Jack Lusher, a beloved Madisonian, sadly passed away in July after 90 long years of life. Jack was an inspiring philanthropist who personally funded many projects for our community over the last several decades. Those projects include some of our district's most cherished sites: the Lusher Stadium at La Follette High School, the Lusher Community Education Center. Jack was a believer in helping underprivileged students advance their education, and he funded hundreds of scholarships for students to attend Madison College. The Board of Education formally recognizes Jack Lusher's many contributions to the district and his advocacy for many of the district's youth. Our condolences go to Jack's family. His legacy will live on through the greatness of those he has helped succeed. Our second announcement is about Spring Harbor student Lola Hernandez Mendoza, who took second place in the National Spanish Spelling Bee. Lola, who will be going into 7th grade this fall at Spring Harbor Middle School, took second place in the 8th Annual National Spanish Spelling Bee held in San Antonio in July. Lola won our MMSD Spanish Spelling Bee hosted by our Office of Multilingual and Global Education in May, which qualified her to compete at the national level. The board would like to congratulate Lola for not only studying and winning second place in the National Spanish Spelling Bee, but also for serving as an example for other students in the district to follow. Our third announcement is with regards to East High receiving the Global Citizenship Award by Amigos de las Americas. East High School was chosen to receive the Global Citizenship Award by the Amigos de las Americas, recognizing exemplary educational organizations that show a commitment to developing global citizens as well as students that strive to make an impact in their communities. The board recognizes East High School and all of its educators for their contributions in receiving this high honor, which is described as having gone above and beyond to shape this new generation of global leaders. And our last announcement is with regards to 100 Black Men of Madison successfully holding its 24th annual Back to School celebration. The 100 Black Men of Madison successfully held their 24th annual Back to School celebration at Madison College earlier this month. This year, over 1,400 backpacks were filled with school supplies and given to our community youth for the upcoming school year. This tradition started 23 years ago and continues to help so many of our families and students. Over 35,000 backpacks have been donated since the very first Back to School celebration. The board humbly appreciates the 100 Black Men of Madison for organizing this wonderful event and the dozens of other participating community organizations for their contributions. Maybe a round of applause for all of those. Okay, and moving ahead on our agenda is the superintendent's announcements and reports.
Thank you, Mary. Given the thoughtful and important testimony that we heard tonight, I'm going to shorten my presentation and just extend some thank yous to the many people who prepare for a strong launch to any given school year. I want to thank the enrollment team, which includes a whole group of kind of temporary workers who step up to support the enrollment season. I'm very thankful for their work. I want to thank the building services team who has been working hard to make sure our school buildings are ready, and they've had some additional challenges, as you know, because of the flooding. Not only have they had to support some schools in the kind of first round of challenges, but they've been doing some proactive work to make sure that our schools are ready to welcome students and staff back in recent days. So big shout out to the building services team. I want to thank the HR team who has been going above and beyond to make sure that our schools are staffed for this upcoming school year. Our principals, I think some of you may remember this, but there's like a back to school tracker that helps principals think through every little detail to make sure that school is ready to launch well. That task list is about 100 tasks long. It is serious business. And I just want to thank all the principals, secretaries, school staff for doing everything that they do. Our school teams have done a phenomenal job planning for Welcome Back. As you know, we are welcoming staff back today. So really excited to have our staff back in our schools. As Mary mentioned, we have community partners like the 100 Black Men that step up in support of each new school year. The backpack event was phenomenal as usual. Yeah, were you there? Oh,
I
good.
was there both for the stuffing and the giving out.
Right on.
I sent out Rachel's videos.
Thank you for that. The enrollment team was there, enrolling families, which was wonderful, and I think everyone is probably aware of another example. JP Hair Designs gives free haircuts to students which was happening this past Sunday. So I want to thank all of the community partners who step up and support us. Every year, our community schools had their welcome back picnics at Leopold and Mendota. And again, not only staff, students, and families showed up, but community shows up in support of our schools. The Foundation for Madison Public Schools has been on a big campaign to welcome teachers back and thank them for the important work that they do every day. Central office, every year, as you know, signs up and they're deployed out in schools to support in whatever way a school needs, and everyone has signed up and we're ready to rock and roll for next week. You know, I could go on and on. It's sort of a long list. In general, I just want to say big, big thank you to everyone who makes this happen every year. We always hit a few bumps in the road, as you know, but we respond to those bumps as soon as we hear about them to make sure that students, staff, and families are getting what they need to start strong. So thank you. Thank you. Thanks to everyone in the audience who helps make this happen every year. And I'll go ahead and pass it back to you, Mary.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to move that we move item 13-1 to next on the agenda. It's the Fitchburg Tax Incremental Finance District, and representatives from the city of Fitchburg are here. I don't think we actually will need their presence, but so that they can go home to their families and we can finish our business. So I'd like to move that we move that to the next item on the agenda.
It's actually 14-1.
14-1? No, it's 13-1.
On the electronic, it's
sometimes changed.
Okay, so
it's 13-1, right?
13-1 on the
13-1, second, yeah.
On the electronic and the printout, I think, are different. So we are clear on which one it is. It has a second. Any discussion? Ahmad, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. And we are taking up 13.1. I will move that the Board of Education support the amendment to the City of Fitchburg Tax Incremental District Number 10 as set forth in the documents prepared for the August 27, 2018 regular board meeting.
Second.
Okay. So, Kelly.
This one? Yep.
Yep.
In front of you tonight.
Little more closer to the microphone. Thank you.
In front of you tonight
yes.
is the TID 10, TID with the City of Fitchburg. And the TID 10 is original TID. It was small in nature that is being asked to be expanded from 5 acres to 195 acres. So it is a fairly expansive extension of a current TID. From a timeline perspective, I want to be very transparent with you, and there was some miscommunication around the voting of the TID. And this current TID was actually voted on last week. We had thought that the vote would be next week, and that this, of course, would be before the vote, as would be normal. And in this case, the vote was actually last week, and it did pass without a presence from MMSD due to that miscommunication. So I wanted to be clear with the board about that. You have in front of you the details of the TID, and I'm happy to answer any questions or invite anyone from Fitchburg that is here to answer them as well.
Okay, I don't think we'll need anyone to come up. TJ?
I'll just make a couple quick comments. You also have in your packet and in the public packet is an analysis from Mike Berry as well as a Q&A with the Fitchburg people. First off, I think that there's shared responsibility for having missed the vote, the communication. I was part of the miscommunication, and I think that more than one of us dropped the ball, but I was one of the people who didn't pick it up. So I apologize to the board for that. Secondly, I think Mike's analysis is pretty much right on. In the analysis, there's some concerns, particularly around the about $25 million of this TID is essentially speculative TID for undefined purposes, phases 4 and 5. These concerns, and in his analysis, Mike recommends that our representative raise these concerns with the rest of the Joint Review Board. I can report that at the initial meeting of the Joint Review Board that I did raise those very concerns, and so those concerns have been heard. I would also add one thing to Mike's memo, which is that Fitchburg, this TID, and all the TIDs in Fitchburg that I'm aware of, The developer financing is done on what is known as a pay-go basis, meaning that the money doesn't go out till the increments exist, which is different than a purely speculative TID, which this is one of those ones where I find myself with tax income loan finance where I don't love the way it's set up, but I can live with it. And so I will be voting yes, and that's my addition to Mike's analysis.
Okay, any questions? Okay, Ahmad, your advisor vote?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 7-0.
Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, so back to our agenda, which is the report on items that proceeded through the instruction work group. So, Dean.
I didn't chair.
There was no instruction.
Okay,
so
well,
there wasn't one.
Okay.
They made me chair and didn't give me a meeting.
Okay, so I am reading from the agenda here, and next meeting is October 1, so no September meeting as well. And proposed agenda item for October 1 is personalized pathways. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the report on items that proceeded through the operations work group held on August 13th, 2018.
Okay. All right, so we had a short meeting, a very efficient meeting, focused on, yes, exactly, thumbs up from Matt, focused on the Chapter 8000 policies. We spoke about a handful of them. I believe there may be one still for a little bit of discussion tonight, but they're broadly focused on personnel and updating some of the policies for our employee handbook process.
Okay, and do you want to report on when the next meeting is and what items are on that agenda?
The next meeting, I do. The next meeting is the 17th of September. We've got cash flow borrowing as well as Title I, and we may add one more topic depending on how we're able to arrange our annual calendar. You look like you have something to say.
I think that's the MSCR topic. Is that what I'm sorry.
No, we may add one more topic.
Oh, okay.
It's, Kelly and I have been just discussing if we could move something up to create a little bit more space on the agenda later on in the year once we get into budget season, so.
Okay, thank you. And so the next agenda item is action items that proceeded through the instruction work group, but there are none for this month. So we move on to action items that proceeded through the operations work group. And as Kate alluded, we have our Chapter 8000 policies. So I am going to move that the Board of Education approve changes to the Board of Education policies 8001, 8005, 8011, 8013, 8031, 8042, 8121, 8200, 8201, 8202, 8221, 8241, 8251, 8252, 8253, 8254A, 8351, 8361, 8381, 8421, 8431, 8461, 8483, 8701, 8821, 8831, 8851, 8862, 8870, and 8900 as set forth in the materials prepared for the August 27, 2018 regular meeting with said revisions to take effect immediately. TJ.
Can we do this like a consent agenda because there's two I would like to pull off that list?
I would say once the motion has been made.
It hasn't been seconded. Hasn't been seconded.
The other option, let me just show you. The other option is that the amendment is you move to remove.
I'm not ready, and I think that I want to have a little discussion of kind of some of the issues I want to raise. We won't have language tonight to change these, and therefore I would like to vote against two of the policies in their unchanged state. I would like to have a discussion of them and how we can get to a place where I think there's some issues that the board is in general should address, and I had a discussion with Matt today, but we didn't end up at a place where there's amendment language.
Well, I mean, actually, to amend my motion to take out those two policies.
Then I would like to amend your motion to take out 8200 and 8242. I'm sorry, 8200. Go back here. 8200 and 8042.
8200.
I think we do need, if we're going to go the amendment route, I think we do need a second of the motion, and then the amendment of taking.
I will second both of them.
Okay, we have a second on the main motion, and do we have a second on the amendment?
Yes, I second that.
Second
as well.
on the amendment. Okay, so we're just going to vote on the amendment, but first, is there any discussion on the amendment? TJ, do you want to? Could you provide some?
Yeah, I guess. There's an issue, and there's a few different ways to frame this issue. The two I would like to use is, number one is, there's this question about what does the Human Resources report that we approve or accept or do something with on every monthly agenda, what does it mean? So that's one piece of it, and in the discussions Matt pointed out, that Matt and I had, that there's a whole lot of different things on that report. There's separations, and as Matt said, that we can't hold people in involuntary servitude, so we're not actually approving those, we are simply recognizing them. But there are other things such as changes in contract, changes in position. For example, if we have an administrator who is, moved from one school to another, perhaps moved from being an assistant principal to being a principal, and things like that appear on there. There are the renewals of administrative contracts which happen annually. There are people who go from 30%, from 50% to today we've got one that got people going from, I think, 50 to 80% on the agenda today. There are people who get their board certification and therefore get a raise. There's a whole kind of variety of things that happen on this. And what Matt suggested is that, working with Deirdre's team, we kind of separate these out into things that the board has no business approving. The board might want to consider exercising their power to approve, and ones that are definitely things where the board should be voting to approve these. And come back with recommendations along with redoing that. And this would require, I believe, changes in both 8200 and 8042. 8042. Sorry, I keep getting that number wrong. And perhaps others, but those are the two I'm pretty sure, and perhaps 8041 too, but we're not voting on 8041 tonight. So that's the purpose of my amendment is, and then the amendment is that in their current state, I want to vote against their current state. I don't want to be on record having had this opportunity to change and not changed it. So there's two pieces here. One is that I would like to have this agendaed later to talk about this other issue. The other is that personally, I don't feel I would like the opportunity to not vote in favor of these other two policies. And I'm not going to make a case for anyone else to vote against them tonight or anything like that. I just don't want to vote for them.
Okay, and
Kate? No, I was just going to say, it sounds like if other people are in agreement, the action is to have Matt work with us on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to hear from the administration whether there's any issues with the delay and not voting on those
no, we'll vote for them tonight, I think. Or maybe not, I don't know.
That's not what I hear TJ suggesting.
Not the, I mean, 8200.
I assumed that these would pass tonight without my vote, is what I assumed. I just wanted a chance to vote against them.
Actually, my question is, Matt, is it possible that we table those two issues and then vote for the rest of the policy, the 8,000 policy, with the agreement that the other two come back on the next agenda?
And then they would stay as they are now.
Yeah, the old policies would just remain.
Yeah, they would remain as they are now.
Yeah, they would just remain. I mean, another way to do it would be to pass them as they're revised, because the current revisions are, I'm looking at 8200, and it does add provision for the initial
That's something I like, yeah.
Right, and that I think we can all agree to. The board approves initial contracts for employment. It took out a couple of paragraphs that during Operation Workgroup, there was general agreement that were we wanted out, the board wanted out.
Number
So-
3 you're talking about?
What's that?
Number 3 and 8,200?
Yes, number 3, and also number 2, because it refers to collective bargaining. So it could be that they pass as revised, as proposed revised, and then they come back for further revision. That's also an opportunity.
You know, I will withdraw my amendment with that, and it'll be simpler for everyone. And I think that I would like to have, if we were talking earlier tonight about one board member versus board members collectively, and if we could provide a sense that the work that Matt described, or that I described, Matt describing to me around clarifying the HR report and our role in that, if we could have an informal sense of the board that this is something we would like to take up, that would be the board and not just me. But I will withdraw my amendment.
Okay, amendment withdrawn, and I think that with Operations Workgroup, you can look at how those two, 8,200 and 8042, might come back before the 5-year rotation.
We can make that happen.
Okay, okay, good. I love that camaraderie, working together. Okay, then the amendment has been withdrawn, and we are back to the main motion. Ahmad, your advisory vote? Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 7-0. Thank you. Next, we have on the agenda our consent agenda, and I will move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all the motions set forth in Section 10 of the electronic agenda prepared for the August 27, 2018 regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his or her affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated hereby, subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the board.
Second.
Okay. I'd like 10.4 out.
Okay, Nikki, since the numbers may be different.
Curricular learning materials.
Okay, curriculum, right. That's on the electronic agenda, that's 9.4. Any other separations? Teacher.
9.13, Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce contract for services. 9.17, DVRs, cameras, and backup, etc. And a quick shout out to the MCFA Challenge. Some of the first political campaigns I worked on were for Abner MCFA, and it's a good organization, and he was a great man.
Okay. Any other separations?
10.19, please.
10.1.
Well, and mine is 10.19.
And that would
donation
be...
of equipment and materials from American Family Insurance Company.
Okay. So then the separations that we have are 9.4, 9.13, 9.17, and 9.19. So back to the main motion. Any discussion? Ahmad, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 7-0. So let's go with Nikki, the curriculum learning materials, 9.4.
On 9.4, the reason I pulled this is that I understand that we're trying to simplify the consent agenda, and I respect that, but I'd like to have listed everything on the learning and curriculum materials that instead of just having it listed on board docs, I'd like it on the agenda just for the issue of transparency. Currently, right now, we have it so that they're all grouped together, and I'd like to know what individual things we're voting for on learning materials, rather than just accepting them all blindly.
You don't get the...
Yeah, of course.
Nikki, I don't know if you saw this, but if you click on the actual memo...
I have the written copy. I didn't go to the electronic, so I never got it.
It does actually.
Okay, then I rescind that, and I will start switching to the electronic copy because...
We can print that for you.
Oh,
You should be able to print it, yeah.
Because I didn't have it.
Yeah,
Okay, so no problem. We will, since we've already voted on the main motion, then we'll just vote on this motion. I move that the Board of Education approve the curricular learning materials purchasing adoptions in the total amount of $247,434.44 with funding from the 2018-19 Curriculum and Instruction CRLM funds.
Second.
Any discussion? Ahmad, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Okay, 9.13, TJ. Contract for Services, Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce Foundation.
I appreciate the updates that came, I believe it was in the weekly update last week, which described the scope of services in more detail than we've seen before. Previously, we'd seen mostly the youth apprenticeship things and that. I still believe, and will continue to believe as long as I'm on this board, that the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce should be our partner in the sense that they fundraise among their members to support this work, at least 50% of it, and instead of us footing the entire bill for it through public dollars. So I will be voting against it.
Okay. Then I will move that the Board of Education approve an expenditure in the amount of $80,000 payable to the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce Foundation to support implementation of the experiential learning program during the 2018-19 school year.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Has there been discussion around different funding sources previously, or?
I don't think I'm best positioned to speak on it, Kate. I'll find out. I know that there has been some discussion, but I don't feel up to speed enough to answer your question. Okay. So how about I owe you? Okay. Sounds good.
James.
Yeah, I'll go along with Kate's comment. I certainly don't see any problem with approaching them and asking if they'd be willing to.
Yeah, I'm good
Can't
with
hurt
it
us.
now. It'd be something to work towards.
I would agree. I would also agree. I always like the 50-50%. I do more than just ask. Be a little, yeah. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Ahmad, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that passes 6-1. 9.17, district-wide safety and security, additional DVR, cameras, and backup NES. TJ.
I actually would like to know if this is being paid for out of the school safety grant or whether it's being paid for by other funding sources.
Joe, do you think you could speak on this? Thank you.
Yeah, so that we didn't write the school safety grant for cameras specifically. This was the set aside funds out of fund balance to pay for upgraded video.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all you needed?
That's all I needed. That's all I needed. It wasn't clear from the memo, and so.
Okay, so I recommend, or I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of additional digital video recorders, DVRs, Internet Protocol cameras, or IP cameras, and network attached storage, NAS, backup in the amount of $367,247 from Integral Building Systems using the 2018-19 district-wide safety and security operating budget.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Ahmad, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Okay, and our last separation is 9.19, donation of equipment and materials from American Family Insurance Company.
I just pulled this, not because I'm voting against it, but to say thank you for the MOA and the updated information on the American Family and the correction on the partnership. I found that really helpful material.
Oh, good. Okay. Then I move that the Board of Education accept a donation of equipment and materials from American Family Insurance through the Foundation for Madison Public Schools at an estimated value of $15,000 to support updates to the internal and external appearance of Sherman Middle School.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Ahmad, your advisor vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Okay. Our next item is other items of business proposed to be considered under Section 10 of the consent agenda, which are none for this meeting, and as well as items identified under Section 10 consent agenda that were separated, which we covered. And we are on to other reports to the board.
I am the City Education Committee.
Okay, for your first up.
We met on August 8th, 2018. We discussed the North Side Family Zone, Early Childhood Zone, excuse me, I keep calling it the Family Zone, and the Leopold Early Childhood Zone. We had 2 speakers, we had quorum, and we had an excellent discussion on the role the city will play and whether it will expand to other areas, whether the school would possibly be involved with 4K, is a possible topic, though we have not come to a consensus on that. And September 12th is our next meeting.
Oh, excellent. Okay, thank you, Nikki. Next is Student Senate. Ahmad?
Student Senate has not had a meeting since the last regular meeting, but we have a meeting set for September 12th.
Oh, excellent. Next is our Educational Resource Officer Ad Hoc Committee. Dean?
Yeah, our subcommittee met to continue to edit and put the final touches on the editing of the document we have. We plan to be done by the end of September.
Okay, great. Well, we'll look forward to that. Student Behavior Ad Hoc Committee. Gloria?
Thanks. We've met 2 times. We met July and August, and we are expecting our next meeting to be, I think it's September 17th. Really 2 productive meetings. This is really an opportunity for us to assess the current behavioral education plan and look to improve the policies and gain, look at the implementation efforts of the behavioral education plan in our schools and to gain support and help support our teachers and our staff in regards to behavior. So we're going to be looking at existing data sets. That includes the evaluation that was conducted with the behavioral education plan. We discussed clarification of priorities and focus areas regarding policy, staffing, and implementation. The exciting thing about this process is we're doing case studies. So we are actually bringing schools into these meetings and hearing from them how the implementation is going. We heard from Black Hawk the last time we met in August. Wonderful school, good work happening. Very impressed with the principal and the staff. Really just genuine and real about the issues in our schools. They didn't hold back, and they talked about the positives and the negatives, and that is exactly what we want to hear. Really positive work. We're looking forward to hearing from other schools as we move forward. Our next meeting, September 17th, I think we're going to be hearing from 2 or 3 schools. We are going to expand our engagement to MTI and others on this. So at the end, let me look at the plan of work. February will be our last meeting. Okay. So we have a tight timeline, and we'll be making recommendations on policy changes, staffing, and implementation.
Great, thank you. Okay, so then we move on to other business and on to item 13.2, which is the appointment of 2018-19 hearing officers. Looks like I need to read the whereases. Okay. Whereas Madison School Board Policy 4045 and Wisconsin State Statutes 120.13 sub 1 sub E provide that the Madison School Board, herein the board, may adopt a resolution in which the board may authorize the use of an independent hearing officer appointed by the board to determine pupil expulsion from school And whereas such resolution is only effective during the school year it is adopted, and whereas the board desires to adopt such resolution and use independent hearing officers to determine pupil expulsion from school for the 2018-19 school year. Therefore, I move that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the use of an independent hearing officer for the 2018-19 school year to determine a pupil's expulsion from school, and be it further resolved that the following independent hearing examiner shall be appointed to the pool of examiners. David Friedman.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Just would like to clarify that we will likely be appointing one or more other hearing officers pending analysis and/or applications via an RFP. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I notified the board. We did do an initial RFP, got no responses, and David is an individual who's done hearing he's been a hearing officer for us for a number of years, and he did offer to continue. So we will be doing the RFP again in hopes that we do get some additional candidates.
And if legal professionals might be interested in serving as expulsion hearing officers, they should contact Human Resources or your office?
They can contact my office. Yep.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Excellent. Okay, so then we have a motion and a second. Ahmad, your advisory vote? Aye. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. There is no old or new business, and so I will move to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Dean, can I get a ride?